is going on, ProGuides family? My name is Renox, and today I will be your guide to Cold War. You will never be able to win every game you play. However, the goal is to be the reason that your team has a greater chance at winning in the hopes that you'll win more and more matches moving forward. With that being said, we recommend that you look at this video as options towards improvement rather than an actual guide. Although all of these tips will help you improve, it is important to distinguish which will help you the most right now and choose to learn those when starting out. Alright guys, I think that's enough talk. Let's get straight into the video.
Alright guys, the very first thing that you can do in order to heighten your knowledge of the game is learn how to read the statistics of each weapon. Although memorizing these stats isn't crucial for becoming a better player, it is important to recognize the patterns for each weapon type. Let's start from the top. When looking for the weapon stats for any weapon, you will see 4 groups: firepower, speed, accuracy, and ammo. Ultimately, by becoming familiar with some of the more significant differences between weapons, you will be able to create the most ideal class setups for performing well in-game. For instance, a fairly simple example to understand is that when looking at the fire rate statistics, SMGs will excel over rifles. However, when looking at the effective damage range, rifles will almost always excel. For this reason, you have 2 options when adding attachments to your weapons. The first option, which may seem like the most obvious, is to add attachments in order to improve the weapons in areas in which they struggle. For instance, one very common choice is to try and decrease aim down sight time on sniper rifles in order to somewhat compensate for their very low time to scope. However, there is also another option that can be beneficial throughout games. For example, if you choose to play with light machine guns, no matter how many speed attachments you add to the weapon, you will never have an advantage over SMG players at close range. For that reason, you can add attachments such as those that increase fire rate, effective damage range, and damage, things that the light machine gun already excels in order to make it even more effective if used correctly. It should now be simple to understand why knowing how to read the weapon stats of the base weapons is crucial to creating a solid class. Before moving forward though, let's get into our question of the day. Today's question is a fairly interesting one in our opinion. If League play is introduced into Cold War, do you think there will be any rewards that are exclusive to League play? For instance, as a compensation for reaching the highest rank, you will get an exclusive League play skin that no other non-League players use or will have access to. Personally, I think this would be pretty cool and a good reason for players to dedicate their time into League play rather than normal matches. What do you guys think though? Let us know in the comments down below and we'll be sure to read as many as we can. Moving forward, the second tip that we will present to you is directly related from the first tip. What we're going to be going over is the crucial nature of understanding how to create classes around your gameplay styles. Now that we've gone over how to actually choose attachments for your weapon, let's look at how you should create classes based on your gameplay style. For example, although any weapon can be used by any type of player, it is obvious that some weapons will excel at longer ranges while some will be better used close up. Similarly, some weapons are utilized for pushing fast while some are used more conservatively. Because this is fairly simple to understand, we don't want to spend too much time explaining it. Where people struggle, however, is when they have to choose their perks. This can be fairly hard if you're not an experienced Call of Duty player. Although we don't have the time to go over every perk in the game, we will present one of the main perks for each slot to look into for both aggressive and defensive players. For the first slot, more defensive players should look into Flakjack. This is simply because many players will try to eliminate you with grenades when you tend to hold in certain areas for an extended period of time. More aggressive players, however, should often choose a tactical mask for the purpose of not getting stunned when trying to push into the enemy backline. For the second perk, I would often choose Quartermaster for people playing back, while I would choose Tracker if I wanted to push in. These are fairly self-explanatory, so we won't waste any time going over them. Lastly, for the final perk, the best possible option tends to be Ghost for defensive players. This is simply so the enemies won't be able to spot you on the minimap while you're holding an area. Ninja is the better perk for more aggressive players though, simply due to the fact that when in the enemy backline, you don't want to give off any indication that you're about to make a play. You ultimately want to be as sneaky as possible in order to get the most value out of your play. Now, let's get into some things that can directly help you while you're playing. One thing that many players neglect much too often throughout the game is the minimap. Although there is one obvious way to use the minimap effectively, finding out enemies' locations where they make noise or are seen by a teammate, the minimap can also be used in a more advanced manner. Let's go over one main method of utilizing the minimap that we notice a lot of players tend to overlook. By seeing where your teammates are, you can actually reasonably deduct where your enemies will be located. Although there will always be exceptions like flankers or players spawning in random locations on bigger maps, in most cases you can find out the enemy's location without even seeing or hearing them. By simply noticing something like a spawn flip, you can assume that the enemies will begin to spawn at the other point. In most instances, this point can be pinpointed on the map simply because spawn points are always fairly consistent. By using this to your advantage, you'll be able to hold more aggressive angles, get longer streaks, and survive in the enemy backline without dying as often. Even if you're a more defensive player, this is still important. Say you're holding in the window on Nuketown. If the enemy begins to spawn behind you, it's crucial to notice this early so you don't get flanked and have ample time to switch angles or switch up your playstyle for the time being. Next up, understanding when to utilize score streaks is crucial to becoming the best player that you can possibly be. It is way too often that we notice players overlapping spy planes or utilizing RCXDs in the enemy backline. Although most score streaks are fairly straightforward once they are used, the timing is also a crucial component to take into consideration in order to ensure that you stay alive and get as much value from your streak as possible. First off, let's go over the obvious. When trying to use a spy plane, you want to ensure that you don't already have one actively above. This is because if the enemy chooses to shoot down one, they will likely shoot down the other without hesitation. Secondly, if you have the counter spy plane equipped, you generally want to wait until an enemy spy plane is used to activate your streak. This is because although your spy plane would nullify the enemy's minimap even if they don't have a spy plane active, waiting until they call a spy plane will ensure that you get the most value out of your streak. Next up, let's discuss the more active streaks that force you to AFK while you're using them. Some examples of this are the RCXD and the cruise missile. When trying to use these, you have to ensure that you won't die while you're using them. Most of the time, you'll only get 1 or 2 kills with abilities such as these, and assuming you're playing a kill-based game mode such as Team Deathmatch, Free-for-All, or Kill Confirmed, a 2-for-1 trade won't be worth it, assuming that you're using a score streak. In most scenarios, you won't end up getting these types of streaks more than once or twice per game, excluding the RCXD. For this reason, take your time using these streaks. Find an opportunity and take it, but don't just use the streak because you have it. Moving forward, let's talk about catering to the enemy's gameplay in order to benefit your personal KD and matches moving forward. Specifically, let's go over what to do if the enemy plays passively or if they are the more aggressive types of players. Obviously, depending on what type of mode you're playing, you will need to switch up your gameplay in order to come out victorious. For the sake of this video, let's go over 2 instances. Let's start from the top, kill-based game modes. For these, you can often play very passively if the enemy is aggressive simply because they will often walk straight into your crosshair. If they play defensive in these types of modes, however, we recommend going with a more sneaky class that will allow you to flank. In addition, you can often use grenades and other explosives to force them out of position. Regarding objective-based game modes, however, you don't want to go for the same strategy. If the enemy is playing aggressive, you also want to play aggressive in order to ensure that you get to the objective before they do and force them to push you. If you're playing passively, however, although picking any type of class is okay in this scenario, you want to make sure that you try to survive over anything. This is because they will often try to pick you off before they push in. If you neglect this strategy, they will have minimal power as the game moves forward. For the last tip of this video, we recommend utilizing teamwork in order to come out victorious. We know that truly being a team is very hard when playing with a lobby full of people that you've never met before, but in reality, this doesn't really matter. Let's go over a scenario. Let's say you're playing a kill confirmed match and you notice that a teammate is going off on a zone. If you see this happening, without even saying a word, you can begin to follow. This will ensure that even if he dies, you will be able to deny the kill and potentially even get a kill on the enemy in order to get a point for your team. Something as simple as this will not only gain you a point, but also deny the enemy a point, potentially putting you up 2 points from where you would have been if you had let your teammate go off by themselves. Teamwork comes in multiple forms, however. For instance, if you notice that the enemy chopper gunners and spy planes are up for an extended period of time, you should probably swap to a class with a rocket launcher in order to benefit your team overall. Again, although not seeming too extreme, this could significantly benefit you and directly lead to a victory when a game might seem lost. Ultimately, you need to learn how to play around your team no matter if you know them or even if you choose not to use your mic in-game.
We hope that the information provided throughout this video has helped you realize what you might be doing wrong throughout your own matches, and more importantly, how to change your gameplay for the better. If you implement these tips into your games, you will surely notice that you will have a much better experience and ultimately win more games. With that being said, however, don't rush into adding these tips into your gameplay. Take time mastering each individual aspect of your gameplay in order to ensure that you become the best player that you can be in the long run. With that being said, we hope that you all have great luck in the rest of your games, and I'll see you all in the next one.